6.7. Oh, sorry. I want to first say Kathy Krajco was of the first survivors who talked about narcissistic abuse under her real name. She died unexpectedly in her home in 2008. She was 56 years old. I suspect the narcissistic hive mind was behind her death. In her book, What Makes the Narcissists Tick?, Kathy Krajco says, 6.7. The bully. Narcissists, psychopaths are slick at getting themselves hired into positions of power in companies and institutions. Result: when the bully comes to town, the first thing he does is pose as a hatchet man. Then he or she busts every relationship in the joint. Yes, like every narcissist, he's a con artist who works his magic by violating relationships, by coming between other people. In this case, he comes between everyone and everyone else. Divide and conquer. How does he come between all those people? By simply talking privately with each employee about the others. He uses carrots and sticks. They are most effective against the least competent, so he likes them best. Besides, they're easiest to dominate, and that's what this is all about. To hell with the interests of this business or institution. This is about glorifying his image by vaunting himself on others. Between parentheses. So first, he menaces the dead wood about their shortcomings, and then asks them for their opinion about their betters. He does this to implicate them in his wrongdoing so that later, to protect themselves from a lawsuit, they must protect him. He knows what lure is irresistible to each type of game fish, so it incites a malignant situational narcissism in them. In other words, he plays the part of an agent provocateur, which is the fancy French way of saying that he plays the devil with them. Here are some examples to illustrate how he goes about it. If the employee is pocketing his doll, he asks that person to comment on the intelligence of a conspicuously intelligent employee. Wham! Fish hits that lure like a ballistic missile. Never sees the hooks in it. Why? Because it just so happens that an idiot is raring to delude himself that he is exceptionally intelligent, and that his intelligent better is the idiot. This could be true even if there was no wildly swinging axe to duck. If the employee, the boss, is pocketing is unqualified, he asks that person to comment on the qualifications of a high qualified employee, because it just so happens that the unqualified are raring to delude themselves that they are really the most qualified, and that their highly qualified betters are the ones not qualified. All this force requires is judging by invalid criteria. If the employee is pocketing is lazy, the bully asks that person to comment on the productivity of a highly productive employee, and so on. Thus, the con artist chooses his carrots and sticks for the power of suggestion in them, and, as they say, Never underestimate the power of suggestion. The stick is his axe. The carrot is the lure, the chance to project their own faults and shortcomings off onto the betters. In other words, as an agent provocateur, the narcissistic psychopathic boss incites his marks to project their faults and shortcomings off onto their betters. You might say that he steers them into playing Dr. Frankenstein with images, exchanging their vices and flaws with the corresponding virtues and good qualities of the betters. Just like the narcissist does. In other words, they pull a switch with the intelligence of one of their colleagues. They pull a switch with the qualification of another. They pull a switch with the productivity of yet another, and so on until they're perfect. Just like the narcissist in their dreams, which are nothing but a collective game of pretend. So, the narcissist corrupts the employees. He destroys their integrity, or it is more accurate to say that he just tested and they flunked the test. That's what he would say. He would say they are flunking a test of faith, proving that theirs is bad, bogus between parentheses faith. I'm not just saying that. I knew a narcissist once who did exactly that and considered it hilariously ironic that he got away with it in religious institutions. The things those people did prove beyond all doubt that they had no fear of the real God, which amounts to no fear of their really being a God. Whatever you think about them shouldn't cloud his role in the affair. He is playing the devil with them, tempting them. He is deliberately depraving them. The dead wood are his favorites because they naturally think they are the most at risk and therefore are desperate to aim that wildly swinging axe of his at someone else. So they are the most tempted, the most obsequious, and the most useful to him. See also the Mobbing Encyclopedia, Mobbing USA, Emotional Abuse in the American Workplace. And so, from the moment people start going in there, between commas, for their little talks, between commas, nobody trusts anybody. The workplace suddenly falls silent as people stop talking to each other. This con artist has busted the group by dissolving the previous existing network of relationships, replacing it with a sphere of individual relationships, all with him. It's actually more complicated than the first drawing suggests. There was a drawing of relationships before and relationships after. Just have to go see the book at the page 272. So I will repeat, it's actually more complicated than the first drawing suggests because in many workplaces the employees don't just have contact with those working beside them. Each has a personal relationship with every other employees in the place. All those interconnecting lines of communications are cut because the situation has exploded into a backstabbing melee in the mud overnight. So each employee finds himself in the predicament of Hamlet. He can trust no one not to seize upon something he says, twisting, exaggerating it if necessary between parentheses and run to the boss with it. Consequently, the flow of information ceases. The effect is like a shadow of darkness sweeping over the place, leaving everyone alone in the dark and hearing footsteps in the attic, wondering what's going on, wondering what others are saying about him to the boss. Before you know it, you have a full-blown witch hunt, and the truly wicked are all in the first row, sharing every burning. This happens most often in private not-for-profit institutions, especially secretive and low-paying ones. In them, the bully is often a woman, and she can violate the law and deny civil rights with impunity. The victims are first abused and bullied to the point of mental exhaustion, and then ferociously calumniated so badly that they just crawl off somewhere to die. Even if they had the strength to fight, they have been impoverished first, so no lawyer wants the case, especially against a powerful institution that can stonewall for 10 years. See also Bullying in the Workplace by Tim Field. Though the willful and wanton destruction of the victim's careers and entire lives, the bully makes a horrifying example of them to terrorize the rest. He also lets the bystanders know that, by informing against the victim, they are in complicity and legally liable for slander that affects the status of employment, which turns them out to sludge. Way down deep there is, way down deep there in the bottom of his pocket. For to hide their own liability, they must hide his. So they are victims too, are wondering whom he will sick everybody on next. And in every con scheme, the victims cover up the crime. In his return of terror, he can slash their wages and triple their workload, but they must whistle in the dark. Indeed, they act as though everything is hunky-dory, never better. And they go around chirping like a bunch of blissful little birdies in a state of plenitude of grace. He can toy with them all, not just whomever he is after at the moment. He can bully and abuse to his heart's content, because he haunts them. They bend over for it with a smile. Oh, absolute power equals nirvana for a narcissist. He'll get so drunk on it that he'll amuse himself with it. For example, he tries to think up a whopper too big for them swallow, so they have to insult themselves for him by pretending they are too brain dead to know it's a bold-faced lie. Or he'll ask their opinion on something and then mercilessly keep flip-flopping the cues as to which is the right opinion. So the poor fish has to keep flip-flopping too. The more obvious it becomes that he is just plain evil and probably a psycho, the more they fall all over themselves to ingratiate themselves to him. He is their God. Though a narcissist will do this just to vaunt himself on people, he is bound to see the potential for gaining materially as well. With his Holocaust as a smokescreen that keeps the employees preoccupied and intimidated, he can get away with embezzlement or anything. He just keeps a bag packed. When he is finally moved on, the private institution, another victim, likewise covers up his crime against it for him to avoid bad publicity and legal liability. He even gets a recommendation to help him to do it again somewhere else. Note: though labor unions have their faults, and though they serve as adversaries to the employer in many ways, a strong, i.e. unbustable between parentheses union serves both its members and the employer by preventing such goings-on. They educate their members about the divide and conquer scheme, warning them never to fall for it, and inform against their peers for anything but theft and other violations of the law between parentheses. And if a member does try to get in good with a boss by doing so, union members make him or her sorry. Unions will also bring union busting suits against the company for such activities with a bully boss. That's why you seldom see a narcissistic, psychopathic boss preying on labor in a place with a strong union, though you will often find them preying on the salaried personnel there. Thanks for listening. This was 6.7, The Bully. Six point seven. Oh, sorry. I want to first say Kathy Krajco was of the first survivors who talked about narcissistic abuse under her real name. She died unexpectedly in her home in 2008. She was 56 years old. I suspect the narcissistic hive mind was behind her death. In her book, What Makes the Narcissists Tick? Dating relationships by coming between other people. In this case, it comes between everyone and everyone else. divide and conquer. How does he come between all those people? By simply talking privately with each employee about the others. He uses carrots and sticks. They are most effective against the least competent, so he likes them best. Besides, they're easiest to dominate, and that's what this is all about. What lure is irresistible to each type of game fish, so it incites a malignant situational narcissism in them. In other words, he plays the part of an agent provocateur, which is the fancy French way of saying that he plays the devil with them. Here are some examples to illustrate how he goes about it. If the employee is pocketing his doll, he asks that person to comment on the intelligence of a conspicuously intelligent employee. Kathy Krajco says, 6.7 The bully. Narcissists, psychopaths are slick at getting themselves hired into positions of power in companies and institutions. Result: when the bully comes to town, the first thing he does is pose as a hatchet man. Then he or she busts every relationship in the joint. Yes, like every narcissist, he's a con artist who works his magic by violence about. To hell with the interests of this business or institution. This is about glorifying his image by vaunting himself on others. Between parentheses. So first, he menaces the dead wood about their shortcomings, and then asks them for their opinion about their betters. He does this to implicate them in his wrongdoing so that later, to protect themselves from a lawsuit, they must protect him. He knows